Hey, we're back. I got my audio fixed now. Thanks for bearing with me on that. So we're going to start over at the beginning and talk about how to set up Smaart. Smaart is a great program that can be super helpful for you, but it's really confusing. A lot of the information that's out there is written either by people that are doing it so much that they probably don't understand how to start at the very beginning, or they're super nerds and they're just like stuck in nerdland and they want to give you math like this, right? So you read the manual on Smaart and you're like, oh yeah, I can do the forward Fourier transform with xj, is that a w? And then up to negative and positive infinity something. I don't even know what that means, right? So we're going to keep it really simple for you today. And we're going to define like what it is that we're looking at when we're looking at Smaart, what we're trying to do with Smaart, and then even how to hook it up, right? The very basics. I'm going to go over and show you how to do all that stuff. So thanks for popping back on if you were on the last live stream. But what we're trying to do with Smaart is we're trying to get our speaker system to sound good, right? We want it to be transparent so that what we put into it is what we get out of it. And that's an important point. Some guys will try to EQ their sound system so that it sounds good with a vocal microphone with no EQ on it, right? But which vocal mic are you going to choose? And whose voice are you going to choose? And are they going to be speaking or singing? Or are they going to be singing low, or are they going to sing loud and high, right? There's all these different things that are, variables with that. So let's just throw that idea out. You don't need that idea. You want your speaker system transparent, but you want it a little bit hyped, actually. You want it to like have a little bit more beef and punch. And not only just because I like low end, which I do like low end, but there's a couple other things that happen when you go from having an empty room when you're getting your sound system set up to getting a bunch of hot water bags or people in your room so that those are absorbing all this low end. So you don't want it to be harsh because a bunch of people came in. Yeah, you want it to sound good after the audience gets there. So you need a little bit extra from your low end to sound natural. The other part is that as you're going up and trying to overcome the noise of them singing along, because if we're doing audio at church, we want people to be singing along, and sometimes people can get really rowdy and they can sing loud, and so we have to push the sound system and the leaders up over that, and we don't want it to get thin and junky when we do that, right? We want it to be thick and beefy, or else loud gets harsh when it doesn't have enough low end. So we want a little bit of hype on the bottom end. So if you've been waiting for this video for a long time and you've been like, James, make a video on Smaart, or you've been wondering, hey, how do I use Smaart? Go ahead and hit thumbs up on this video. Let me know that this is something that you wanted to see. Because honestly, when people started asking me about it, I didn't really know how to use Smaart well, right? I used the RTA. I kind of understood the concepts, but I was like, I got to dive in and learn all this stuff. So I'm being teachable and teaching myself and trying to learn this stuff. So that I can learn it for you. But I'm by no means an expert on this, but I want to make it simple for you. So mash thumbs up. Go ahead and hit your, put your comments in the chat box as we're going. Or if you're watching the replay, you can put your questions in the comments below. I love responding to your comments. Some people apologize for commenting too much. I'm like, I'm a teacher. I love teaching you. Please comment and ask questions, because that helps me refine what I'm doing for you guys. Because I can't be everywhere at once, right? You guys are out there in the trenches doing the hard work every week. I just want to be able to help you to do a better job and make every worship mix enjoyable. So thanks for joining in today. We started talking about what we're trying to do with our system tuning, and we're trying to get it to sound good. There are complications that come up when we are dealing with system tuning, because we have a bunch of different drivers that need to be crossed over, right? Our tweeters can't handle low end, and our low frequency drivers and our subs really can't handle the high end. So we got to separate that up. We've got to do that. We've got to get the levels adjusted between our speakers, right? The left side, the right side. We've just got to make sure that everything's working well. And then things get really complicated when we get into front fills, side fills, delays. There's timing issues and then phase issues around crossover points. Stuff gets complicated really fast. But if you don't have Smaart, or you don't have a measurement microphone, or you don't really know or you don't have anything to start with, but you're like, I still want my sound system to sound good, right? Here's the method that you can use. You can play music that you're familiar with that sounds really good, and you can listen to it through the speaker system and make little EQ changes to try to get that music sounding good in that room on that sound system, right? The next thing you can do is try to use a reference headphone set. These aren't necessarily reference headphones. These are like monitoring headphones. You could mix through them, but they're not like super flat from like 30 hertz to 40K, right? So, but what you can do, like if you've got a set of headphones, is you want it to sound basically the same on headphones as through your sound system. So you put on your headphones and you listen and you think, oh, how does that sound? And you take off your headphones and you listen. How's that different? You put on your headphones, you listen, and then you take off your headphones, you're listening. So you're trying to compare what it sounds like in headphones that don't have any weird acoustic anomalies. There's not like tons and tons of drivers that you're having to deal with crossovers and timing, right? And so you're trying to use that to make it sound good, and so that your speaker system is then transparent, or it sounds the same as your reference headphones. So that's the first part, or what you can do if you don't have any other equipment, right? Just try to get good sounding music sounding good. And that's a real like skill that's beneficial, because you might be in a situation where you don't have all these tools, right? But you got to make it sound good, right? So the gear between the ears is the most important. And then my other favorite saying is it's all about the low end, right? So we're talking about Smaart and how to set it up, right? So we've established that we want to get our sound system to sound good, but it gets a little bit more complicated. What are we doing with Smaart? And we're trying to compare two signals, right? We're trying to compare what's coming into our microphone, right? We've got a reference microphone here. Mine is the Dayton Audio Electret Measurement Microphone. I just bought it. It's about $50 shipped. It's kind of noisy. It's not the greatest microphone. It's not got a super hot output, so I'm hearing console noise when I turn it up. But it's gonna, like make stuff work, and it's not super flat, right? But you can make adjustments for that. So what you want with your microphone is you want it to have no color. You want it to be transparent so that what is arriving at the microphone is actually what's arriving at your system process, or not your system processor, at your Smaart or FFT or whatever, the program that you're using. You want it to sound like totally neutral, or not to color the sound at all. You want it to be omni, you want it to be flat, but even if it's not, you can get a lot of information out of it, so that you can make good judgments and understand what you're doing. The other thing you need is an audio interface, so that you can get the audio from the microphone and from your reference signal into your computer. Because like the computer doesn't really like wiggling electrons, right? It likes ones and zeros. So you have to use an audio interface for that. The other thing that you need is some way to add EQ, delay, and level changes to your speakers, right? And hopefully you can do that to each of them individually. And this will be usually a system processor that you're using. A lot of digital consoles now, though, they have EQ and delay and even limiters built in on every matrix output. So you could, send your, delays and EQ your speakers all on the console internally. But when we're setting things up, we need to make a distinction on that so that we can make a little bit of changes. Let me get out my handy dandy marker, and I'll show you guys how to get all this set up, right? So we've got our loudspeakers, right? Well, let's say there's a two-way system, and then we've got a sub, because everybody loves subs. And this has got a giant cone, right? And here's our subs. Out here, we've got our console. And here we have our measurement microphone, right? Then we also, let's put it on a stand, because microphones don't like to be in free space. We've also got our laptop over here. right? And this is running Smaart with 2 A's because that's fun. And then we've got our interface, right? And that is taking data and putting it into the computer. Now, another thing that we need in our system is our system processor. And yes, I know a lot of you guys are probably doing this on your consoles, but the system processor, separate from the console, is important to be able to actually know what we're measuring. Or if we do put it on the console, I'll show you how to deal with that. So our system processor is what is dividing up the full range signal that comes from our console and sending it to our speakers and sending it to our subs. We usually need subs sent separate from the system processor because, one, these need different amps, right? I'm not drawing in the amps today, but they need different amps. This might be a bi-amped speaker, so there might be 2 amps going to here. We might need a crossover in between here, but we just want to send a stereo signal from our console, right? So here's where we get Smaart and all this routed properly. Let's go purple. We run our measurement microphone into our interface, and we run our, let's make our pink noise and our reference signal pink, right? So from the interface, we're running into our console, our reference signal. We've got pink noise coming in there. So from our interface, our output is going into the console. The console is then sending it to the system processor, which is sending it to the speakers, right? Our console is also returning the reference signal back to the interface. And this is important for one reason: it's easier to control the level, and that the level goes up and down based on our console fader. If we set this up post fader so that we turn up our fader that gets louder to the speakers, it also gets louder going back to the interface. So that way our microphone level and our return level follow each other. And I'll show you how that all works in just a minute, or why that's kind of important when we get into Smaart. So hopefully all of this is making sense so far. We've got our microphone and our reference return going back into Smaart. And these are the 2 things that Smaart is comparing, right? We're not just setting up, where we're just listening to the microphone. We're also comparing these 2 signals, and we can get a lot more information about delay. We can get information about room reflections and stuff bouncing all around, right? It's a whole lot more helpful to have both of these signals coming back in rather than just using an RTA or a real-time analyzer. So a real-time analyzer just shows you the level of the frequencies at one spot at one time, right? So if we didn't have all this, we were just listening, you could tell a lot of information about this. You could tell what frequency is feeding back. You can tell the overall level changes, but you're not comparing it to anything to get any time or reflection information. So if you understand this so far, go ahead and type setup in the chat box. Thank you guys for commenting in there and following with me. Or you can put it in the comments below. Always love your thumbs up. Hey, Happy New Year to you. Sorry, my eyes are bad. Nauris from Latvia. Glad you guys are here. So here we go. We're getting chat box. Everybody understands the setup. So now that we've got this set up, we need to take a look at Smaart and know what's going on here. And hopefully it hasn't locked up since I started this. It looks like it's working still. Here we go. Let's take a look at Smaart. Yeah, all right. So this is what Smaart looks like, and it is a bunch of squiggly lines, and it can be really confusing. So what's going on here? Well, let me change it around and see if I can get the RTA to work. There's our RTA. So we can see on here, no, why is it? I don't know why my spectrograph doesn't want to do that. So you can see on the RTA, that's not the mic that I'm talking into right now. That's the mic over here that you could hear earlier. So I'll snap into it. You can see that it's clipping there. So that's a real-time analyzer. It's just showing you what levels the different frequencies are. If I get real quiet, you can see the noise floor. You can see how much noise is coming through the preamp from my fan, from my UPS, my computer. Let me get quiet a second. You can see that there's just noise coming through it. So that's the hiss and the rumble that's coming through that's present in our system just because of its own self noise. And so this can be helpful, right? If I make a frequency that sounds like feedback, right? You can see that and see its overtones as well, but that's not really as helpful as it could be. So if I go to magnitude and I turn it on magnitude, there's a couple things that we can see here. We've got our pink noise generator, right? I turn that on and turn it up, right? We can see the pink noise coming through here. And let me, so we can see now that our level is about the same on our reference microphone and our measurement microphone and our reference channel. And I can adjust the fader here on the console, right? You can see I'm moving the console up and down, and you can't see both screens at once. Shucks. So you move the fader around on the console, the level goes up for both, right? Because the level going back into the interface is also going louder at the same time that the level is going louder from the speakers, which comes back into the microphone. And it's important to set your microphone preamp so that happens, so that the levels are the most consistent, right? We want to make sure that the level of our measurement microphone is reaching the interface at the same level as the reference or the reference thing. Whew. Sleep deprivation is not a good thing for your brain, y'all. Y'all get a good night's sleep, okay? There's stuff coffee can't even fix. So when we have our pink noise going and it's up, we want those blue and green traces to be the same. So the thing that we're looking at here in orange is our magnitude line, right? And there's a red line here too, why do we have a red line there too? The red is our, the word just escapes me. My brain is mush. Coherence. Coherence, that's the word. So that's how confident the computer is in the data, or like how much noise do you have to overcome in order to make sure that we know that we've got good data comparing these two signals. Because if you're not above the noise floor, right? Remember I showed you the hiss coming from the microphone. If you're not above that hiss, you're not really going to be able to compare what the level is at that certain frequency. So this is showing us how confident we are at all these different frequencies of like how much intensity we have and how is this good data or not, right? If those lines are really low, you can see like where my cursor is now, it says 50%, 58%, right? That's not good data. So if I turn it up, and hopefully it doesn't come through my mic too much so you guys don't get blasted by pink noise. Right, you can see those lines go up and we can say, oh yeah, I can compare this really well, right? So that is one thing that we need to look at when we are setting up our transform and we're kind of trying to take measurements or trying to see what's going on. Is this really like telling me something that I need to know? The next line that we're looking at now is the magnitude line, or this is comparing the level of the reference signal that is coming back straight from Smaart and what we're measuring at our microphone, right? You can see here that there's a big dip in the EQ around 2-3K, right? This might be because of the microphone itself, right? I haven't inserted the adjustment curve for this mic's frequency response, but you can do that. It might mean that there's some comb filtering, or it might mean that there's a big dip in my speakers and where the crossover is, those aren't really working. Another thing that you need to look for is this delay right here. It doesn't pop up when I try to show it on the window, just because of the way OBS captured this window. But if I hit find and turn up my noise, right, because it's got to have something to like compare it to, it will automatically figure out what the delay is between the signal that it's sending out and the signal that's coming back in on the microphone. It takes into account all the things that are putting delay on it, both the speed of sound coming through the air, right? That's the main thing. But also the console has some latency. So there's a couple milliseconds or maybe a couple hundredths of a millisecond, whatever it is for your console, that it takes time for it to pass through there and come back out. It's taking all that into account. So I hit find, and you can't see this pop-up window. And now I'm inserting 1.48 milliseconds of delay when I'm comparing the two signals. Now this makes a bigger difference when you get into the phase graph, right? And the phase graph still confuses me. When you're at 0 degrees phase, this is like the frequency that they've decided is in time. And things that are going up and to the left are arriving later than that. And things that are, down and to the right is the same thing as up and to the left. If this was going the opposite way, if it was going up and to the right, that means that there are things arriving earlier in time. And this still kind of confuses me. So this can be useful for certain parts of what you're doing. But when you're getting started with it, it can be easy to put your inputs and flip-flop them, right? You might have the measurement microphone plugged into the reference channel or vice versa, right? You might just have gotten it mixed up. There's two things. Of course, you can mix it up. You're just hooking up two things. You're seeing signal. Okay. If you start seeing these sloping up and to the right, that means that you're getting a negative amount of delay, which is just backwards. You're like, how can that happen? How can my measurement be coming in later or earlier than what is being sent out to it? So that's one clue that you might have stuff either set up wrong, or there might be a polarity inverse. But I'm not exactly sure what that looks like because I haven't played with it enough. So getting started with that, you can find your delay. This can also be helpful if you're setting up a delayed speaker and you want to just automatically find that delay. You don't want to have to do calculations. You don't want to have to do my, digital audio workstation trick to try to, hack what the delay time is. You can put the microphone there. You can compare the two signals with the delay speaker. Excuse me. You can compare the two signals with the main speaker, and it'll show you what the change in delay time is. You can do subtraction, which I hope you can do subtraction. And then you can find what delay to put on that speaker further back in the room so that they are time aligned at that one point. So the time alignment, or the find delay, that's really helpful. Phase. The other thing we need to talk about is averaging. The averaging is like how is the time element of what's going on with this. I am still getting my head around that, but if you're faster, it's going to be show you more a quicker response on what you're changing. If it's slower, it'll show you a slower response on what you're changing. Okay, that makes sense. But there's a thing that certain frequencies respond better with it's faster or slower. So that's one thing to look out for when you're learning Smaart and you're trying to get that in. Just that's a question or a blank that you need to fill in when you're learning it. Talking about the averaging. Now the smoothing can tell you lies, right? It's kind of like Photoshop, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, that looks really good. Well, no, it really doesn't. So I'm going to take this up to 1/3 of an octave smoothing and be like, oh, that looks so much better than those horrible jagged lines. Well, the horrible jagged lines are reality, right? And you can't fix what you don't understand is going on. And these horribly jagged lines are helpful in telling us that there's some comb filtering going on, or there's things going on that reflections are coloring the sound, and this is really what is actually happening. When you start to add acoustic treatment to a room, or you try to eliminate the variables of what the reflections are doing versus what is actually coming from your speaker, you're going to get less of this comb filtering or these changes. So that's another helpful thing to do. You can also save your traces, right? You can, I can't remember where it is because I'm still learning this. That's how it goes. But you can save what's going on here and make adjustments so that you can see one trace, then you can see another one. So you can add this one on there, and add this one on there, and add this one on there. And then you can even add average and be like, okay, average 2, we're going to color this blue, and hit OK. And now you've got a line. Okay, so there's a lot of other stuff going on here, but you can average out with several measurements that you take from around the room. Because if you just take one measurement where mix position is, there could be bounces coming off the console. There could be a wall behind you that's causing bounces. There could be a resonance, right? When you just take one measurement, you're not really seeing the whole picture of what's going on. You need to take multiple measurements from around the room, the different speakers, so that you can average those and then say, oh, okay, so there's a trend going on in this frequency range, and then make adjustments from there with some parametric EQ. Now, I recommend using parametric EQ over graphic EQ because I'll show this in a different video, or you can find Nathan Lively's video on this, like measuring an EQ. When you put a graphic EQ on something, things get funky. It is not at all as smooth as you think it is when you're, let's say you boost a whole bunch of frequencies by 5 dB on a shelf. So it looks like you're like getting a nice boost in the low end, but really you're making a lumpy mess. And that's the other thing that the averaging will lie to you about, is you can be getting a bumpy mess in actuality, but the averaging or the smoothing, the smoothing, I need to use the right terms. The smoothing will lie to you and be like, oh yeah, this is so fine. But really you're like getting a bunch of different like bumps in your frequency response at 1/3 octave intervals. So that's not really helpful at all. So you don't want to do that either. So make sure that your smoothing is set to 1/48 of an octave or 1/24 of an octave. Take a bunch of measurements, and then you can start to make changes. Now, if you're going to make changes to a system that is already working, please save what it is before you make changes. Because you don't want to be that guy or that girl that comes in and be like, oh yeah, I fixed it, and then everything's terrible. And even if it was bad before, if it's bad and working and you know how to deal with it, that's much better than it being like worse because you started playing around with stuff. So please, before you start messing with anything, save the settings where it is, open up a new file, either document it handwritten so that you can get back to it. Whatever you do, please save where it is before you get started. So that's how we get started with Smaart. Another time I'll actually take a system to actually do some measurements and take some, see what is going on and what we can do to interpret the data on how those measurements and what we're going to do with them, how we're going to apply EQ, how we're going to apply delay and level changes to our speakers and our subs to make all that work together. Guys, this is a vast topic, and I don't even know if I'll ever get to the bottom of it. But hopefully it can help you get your sound system a little bit better, aligned or, set up so that you can make good decisions when you're applying EQ to your sound system. Again, if you are new here and you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit subscribe so that you know the instant that I go live or post a new video. And be sure to hit thumbs up if you liked this video. Comment below if there's other topics that you'd like to see on it, or if there's other things that you'd like explained simply. That's my gift, is I like to explain things really simply. I like to understand it so that you can understand it and make every worship mix an enjoyable one at your church. And that starts with having a clean PA that sounds even from place to place. You don't have any weird frequency bumps you're dealing with. And again, this stuff is like really, really nerdy. So take it easy on me. If you're a super nerd and you're watching this and you're like ready to mash out the angry comments, please wait and be gracious with me. I probably made a ton of mistakes, but you can let me have it in the comments. Just do it kindly. All right. Thank you guys for serving at your church, whatever part of the world you're at. And we will see you back here next time at Adway Audio. Y'all have a good new year, and keep that workout routine going because it's worth it getting through the sore phase that I'm in right now. All right, guys, take it easy. We'll see you.